At Five Star Bank, community is at the heart of what we do. Every day we strive to have thoughtful solutions for our customers and help our communities prosper. Honest dialogue about the issues affecting the region is vitally important to that prosperity. We are proud to be part of the conversation and hope you'll join in.
Faith is an important component of the American experience. Authors past and present have remarked upon the U.S. as a religious nation and one whose faith, individually protected and exercised, has been an essential attribute of our success as a plural and open society. But a new study shows that religious affiliation is at its lowest point since measurements began in 1931. Is religion still important to us? Joining us on today's Studio Sacramento, produced in partnership with the American Leadership Forum, is Bishop Dr. Parnell Lovelace of the Center of Praise Ministries, Dr. Metwali Ammer, President of the Salam Center, and the Very Reverend Dr. Brian Baker, Dean of the Trinity Episcopal Cathedral. Welcome all to the program.
Thank you, Scott.
So, gentlemen, why are people dropping out of organized religion?
Well, Scott, I think people are dropping out of institutions in general. I think there's a larger cultural shift where people aren't willing to belong to institutions or aren't interested in belonging to institutions just for the sake of belonging to an institution. And unless there is sort of a direct reason, a direct impact on their lives in a certain institution, a direct benefit, then they're going to fall away.
Dr. Ammer, are religious institutions just not relevant today?
I think they are relevant for those who still like to connect with God, and probably religion will be the only place, and places of worship will be the only place for them to go back and to the old-fashioned and connect with God and be guided in their lives.
But Dr. Lovelace, there are many who say that church today doesn't speak to the needs and the challenges of everyday life. How do you respond to that?
It's based on people's experience. It's based on the places that they go. There are many congregations, synagogues, and temples and mosques that are totally connected to the community. They are involved in people's lives. There is change that is taking place within community. So I think it really builds up to what the person's experience is.
Well, but that experience may be decreased somehow because according to this study, less than 1 in 5, or 20% of Americans, I should say not less than 1 in 5, but 1 in 5 Americans, 20%, say that they have no religious affiliation anymore. And that is, as you say, Dean Baker, that there is a sort of a disassociation with institutions in general. There was the documentary Bowling Alone that came out a couple of years ago. But is the need any less than it was years ago?
Well, I think no, and I mean of those 20% that are religiously unaffiliated, the surveys also show that they're spiritually hungry. You know, they believe in God, they're hungry for God, they've just given up on, they haven't found the right way, you know, the right religion, or they've had bad experiences in the religions that didn't feed them.
But what is the difference between religion and spirituality? Because people say, well, I'm spiritual. What in the heck does that mean?
Well, see, I think that that's the type of what is referred to as cognitive dissonance, in which you have people that would look at spirituality and say, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. I think that's their way of addressing their disconnect from organized religion, organized expressions of our faith. And so they've embraced now their own spirituality, and yet it meets a need for them, they state, but it does not in any way, I think, take away from the fact of the need for the institution of the faith being presented in our congregations and with spiritual leadership. I think that that's still a place in our community.
A friend of mine said, though, just to sort of challenge back, said that spirituality is the religious oatmeal, and that it's filling for the moment but ultimately tasteless. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, I think a couple of things, a couple of benefits that come with a religious tradition.
Mm-hmm.
One is being tapping into deep wisdom, deep teachings that have been around for a long time, and having guides and saints, so that we're not just on our own. Because left to my own devices, I'm going to create a pretty weak oatmeal religion. Mm-hmm. So it gives me that deep tradition, but it also gives me a community of believers who challenge me and support me. And I understand the push against organized religion and because of all of the bad that has been done in the name of religion. But I think if you throw religion away, you lose both that deep tradition and that community of support that I think is necessary for
Dr.
elders.
Emmer, is
Also,
it just
by the way-
uncool?
By the way, another reason for keeping away from religions is really the nature of our life nowadays, the multitask life, the smartphone, the internet, the online. The people go ahead and check these kind of things and stay there for hours, and no time to reflect anymore. Even during driving, you find people really, responding to the phone and this and that, not realizing that they need time to reflect and think of God and the creation, and this is definitely one of the reasons our times.
Let me ask you a question. You raise an interesting point that I hadn't considered. This study talks about the decline in affiliation with organized religion. But I wonder, are they measuring the right thing? Because much like with television, okay, no offense, gentlemen, but just like television and how it is that the Nielsen ratings are not able to capture anymore, the fact that we time shift with our DVRs and TiVos and things like that, or we watch things on our iPads and our smartphones. The implication of this study is that we're less religious because we're less connected.
Exactly.
But are we really, because based on your point, is it that we're getting our religion in a different way, through our smartphones, through technology, through ways of being connected into the church other than showing up in a pew or at the mosque on a daily basis?
And this is where the danger is, as the bishop mentioned. Everyone nowadays really developing his own spirituality, his own code of ethics, his own God to that extent. And we're really forgetting the real religion, the real connection with the Creator, with God. And this really cannot be obtained except really through organized religions. Go to your congregation, be one of them, share what's going on in the community and be part of it and getting active to be part of the community.
And as Dr. Emmer is stating, it really has to go back to what is faith. Faith is not merely a belief in something or someone, but really, for those of us that embrace faith, it is the total dependency upon God and interdependency upon one another. The need to have that connectivity, the need to share with one another, to experience not merely a God that is separate from us, but God that is connected to all of us.
It raises a question, though. How did you come to your faith?
I came to my faith here in Sacramento through the Shiloh Baptist Church with Dr. Willie P. Cook, and growing up there in the second oldest African American church in the city, and experiencing the gathering of people from all different parts of the city that came together, and they shared a commonality of what the need was in the community, what the need was for us as a people, as a nation.
And what did that mean for you?
It meant for me family. It meant for me hope. It meant addressing issues of justice and sharing in a common faith with all that shared that same. I came under a pastor who had a newspaper in one hand and a Bible in the other hand. And that was unique for me. That was something that connected my faith to my daily living.
And Dr. Amir, your tradition and your leadership and advocacy, how did you join your faith experience?
Well, I was born as a Muslim and went to the mosque with my father and my older brothers, and then continue practicing as a Muslim. But when I came to this country, especially Sacramento, and I found really out that Muslims are really kind of withdrawn and not known, and the stereotyping, I found myself really where there is a need for an organization really to reach out and to be part of the community. And here, Salam Islamic Center was established back in 25 years ago. And then I found myself by default being the imam. You don't have to go through formal kind of training to be a minister or an imam. I found myself people looking up to me, and I have to train myself, know more about Islam and Christianity and Judaism in order to connect them with each other and to discuss it intellectually when we are outside. And here you are. Salam now is really known in the community and playing an excellent role in providing services to the community.
Dean Baker, is there a common thread in the experiences you just heard in your own?
Well, my experience, I wasn't raised at all going in a religious experience and religion at all. And it was when I was a cadet at West Point. My girlfriend sang in the choir, and I went to church to earn points.
You were a cadet at West Point?
Yes, I was. My wife was my high school sweetheart, and when we met when we were 15, and she always wanted to go to West Point. So I went to West Point because that's where my girlfriend wanted to go to school. And then she started singing in the choir, and I would go to church to earn points with her. And about 9 months later, the message sunk in, and I had this very profound experience of being wholly loved and accepted. And so for me, it was this personal transformation that caught me on fire that I was eager to then share with others.
Have you, not to make light of your experience, but have you ever considered the fact that you ended up in the leadership of a faith, and you could have ended up, based on West Point being a general in a military organization? It's interesting the path that you took.
Well, and it's not that uncommon. I mean, the kind of people that go to West Point are people that want to live a life of service and, live for a higher calling and give themselves for the greater good. So it's, out of every class, there are a few people that end up going into the clergy. So that's not an uncommon path.
Right. When you talk about, Dr. Ammer, about the need in the community, and you speak to the fact that there was a gap, it's really talking about religion participating in the civic space in terms of being involved in the community.
Yes.
And that has transformed and platformed itself into politics. And that's true going back not just decades, but centuries in the American experience. The great observer Alexis de Tocqueville wrote in his journey in early America about that religion was at the grounding of what he thought was so special about the American experience. But that intertwining of religion and society, some would say has been twisted somewhat, and that some that look back on Billy Graham and Martin Luther King as two spiritual leaders who had a therapeutic and cathartic effect on the American experience. Others look at the participation today by some as being a lot more divisive and less uniting in its application. What say you all in terms of the role of religion in public life today?
I think the role of religion really should be very important to bring us together and to encourage us really to be a service to the community. That kind of misunderstanding about our faith and has to be changed. And I really feel strongly that we should replace the idea of my way or no way. This has to be replaced by educating ourselves. The more we learn, the more we understand, and then the more we are willing to accept. In the meantime, we have to devote really one sermon each month to educate our congregation about other religions to promote understanding. We have to open our places of worship to other congregations to come and visit and see on site how we worship. We have to extend our hands to the interfaith and multi-ethnic communities to really strengthen our interrelationship and working with each other and care for each other and share our moments of happiness.
How do you respond to those who say, though, that interfaith experiences and efforts are preaching to the already converted, and that the people who really need to learn the tolerance that's taught within those venues will never show up?
Well, I think the fact that we do come to the table and we partner together, for instance, Dean Baker's congregation, Trinity, and Center of Praise, we've worked together on a Habitat for Humanity project together. It models to the community. I think that it dispels the thought that we are pushing back from one another, that we're not connected to one another. We have very different traditions, but I'm very much aware of the work that Dr. Ammer has done in our community with the interfaith community, and I believe it models a broad picture to all, whether you're a believer or an unbeliever. It cannot be denied that there is something happening and that there are changes that are taking place.
But can you understand the cynic who says, look, within the Christian tradition, Catholics and Protestants have been sniping at each other for centuries. In Islam, Sunni have had conflicts that still manifest themselves to the current day. In Judaism, the Orthodox and the Reformed don't always get along. And so if folks can't even get along within their own faith, is it really reasonable that these efforts amount to anything interfaith?
Well, I don't think it's an either or. I mean, you can see now different Christian traditions coming together and working together. And building relationships, and at the same time partnering with Jewish congregations or Muslim congregations. And yes, it's preaching to the choir because the only people that are showing up are the people that are willing to, but building relationships among the choir is important. And then when something happens to a mosque or a synagogue, relationships are built so that Christians have their back. And that's important. And that can be a witness, when there is a crisis in the community, to have relationships already established so we can respond.
Okay, well, let's talk about a crisis. Recently we had a pretty horrific circumstance that took place in Boston. And the immediate thought, and unfortunately, was that this might be somehow affiliated with the Muslim community. I'd like to hear a little bit about the reaction within your own community, because I was in Detroit at the time, and I talked to another Muslims, and before the bombers were caught, the immediate question, which frankly I understand because many in other communities do the same things. Oh, I just hope it's not one of us.
Yes, yes.
How did that roll through your community?
Well, unfortunately, it seems to me whenever an act of terrorism takes place, we, Muslim community, or the 9 million American Muslims in the United States, really are doubly grieving. First one, we grieve because of what happened. And number two, and more important, we grieve because automatically the 9 million American Muslims are associated with the act, with the fellow who did this simply because he happened to be a Muslim. And this is really very frustrating to us and unfair. When you, for instance, see the crimes committed day in and day out, and the terrorist act and the shooting in schools and theaters and this and that, have we ever associated those people by their faith? When it comes to a Muslim, then the whole Muslim community is blamed and associated with such an act. And this is really very frustrating to us. And every time an act is committed, now we are really stereotyping and Muslims and all of this kind of things we hear in the media and newspapers.
And that raises the question as to, where has the dividing line changed in terms of connecting religion with politics in this country? Because as Dr. Ammer says, there's an immediate rush to judgment on connecting a religion to a terrorist but political act. And what does that speak to in terms of our positioning as a society today?
It speaks to truly the fact that faith is no longer seen as our connectivity with God. Faith is more seen now in regards to how we think of our ideologies, our individual thoughts, how we feel about people socially, economically, culturally, ethnically. It really takes away from the importance of who God is and the central point of what faith should be. Faith should not be in regards to our own individual ethnicities, our own individual cultures, and the diversities that are amongst us. It really is centered around the person of God, His presence, and really the larger subjects such as the love, the justice, the peace, those things that we should be focusing on.
Forgiveness.
And forgiveness.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure. I want to come back to your point,
Yes, sir.
Dr. Ammer, in that Karan Dara, who wrote a book called The Crescent Directive, recently said, "The United States is and has been one of the most religiously tolerant countries in the world, but even the strongest have their moments of fatigue. With anti-Catholic nativism in the 19th century rampant, anti-Semitism in the 20th century, and most recently, anti-Muslim sentiment post 9/11, it seems that religious intolerance is as much of American history as is religious tolerance." Is there, to build on Dr. Lovelace's point, is there a strain of hatred that's central to the American experience that we still have not been able to extricate?
Well, I think there's a strain of scapegoating that's central to the human experience.
Okay.
And I mean, the pattern that you mentioned just highlights sort of there's something in us that looks for a scapegoat. And if we're talking religion, then people find religious scapegoats that they can then sort of demonize and pin all of our problems on. And you see it happen in other stratas of society as well. But I think that's just part of how we're wired as humans that hopefully we are being led out of, but it's a vestige.
I think it is we, the different kind of people with different kind of ethnicity, with different kind of color, with different kind of belief, really create that kind of division among us and lack of tolerance. But definitely religions by nature, coming from the same source, should be consistent in the message to be really communicated to all His creation. Unfortunately, it is my way or no way, dominates the thinking of some really narrow-minded, even religious people, to really think of accepting, not tolerating even is a bad word, because you are not like me, but I tolerate you. But the concept really should be accepting you regardless of our difference. It's an
important distinction.
Yeah.
It is.
Right.
It is. In Islam, we don't accept that word.
Yeah.
When you say tolerance, meaning you are not like me, but I am willing to accept you, to tolerate you.
Yeah.
But really, we are creations of God. We are equal, and we should really work with each other, accept each other regardless of our differences, in order to build our communities and live in peace and harmony instead of confrontation and fight and killing.
That seems like such an essential, fundamental point.
Yeah.
And you know, it's funny with essential, fundamental points,
Right.
they tend to be the hardest to follow.
Yeah, well, definitely. Right. And that's why when I started really talking about education, we really need education. We need to understand each other, open our places of worship, invite everybody to come in, to really be aware of what each one of us is doing, and then we'll find out that we are not different.
I think this gets back to the beginning of your talk, this conversation about the importance of religion. because we each have religious teachings that are trying to appeal to our better angels and call us to be better than we are. And we have this scapegoating and we have this judging that's part of the human experience, but religion, these religious teachings are trying to change humanity.
Right.
In this long arc that we're on.
And to add to what Dean Baker is suggesting, and actually I agree with him and Dr. Ammer, is that religion, or what I reference as faith, has to, I believe, take on three components: that of not just inspiration, that which inspires us, but it must certainly, secondly, take on the component of information, providing the education, sharing with one another, putting everything on the table, inviting all to the table, and then thirdly, transformation. There has to be change. We cannot just have the inspiration and the information, but there's not a change that takes place within the hearts of the hearer.
And as we come to our final moments, we're in our last minute. I wanted to give you all, talking about transformation, you each have 10 seconds. What program or initiative do you have going at each one of your places of worship that you're most excited about? And I'll start with you, Dean Baker.
Well, I have two. One is we have on-site ministries to the homeless that are very exciting, and the other is I'm starting a new program at Zuda Yoga Studio where we're going to help people connect spiritually, people who've had an experience of Christianity but have left the church, where they can reconnect outside of a church.
Okay. Dr. Ammer.
I'm very proud of Salam reaching out to the community, and to confirm that, we just received award from the director of the FBI to Salam for its outstanding services to the community. Number two, I'm really also very proud of reaching out to the community, and we invited, or we hosted, the Spiritual Life Center to pray in our facilities last year, the Easter service, which is the most holiest in the year, when he asked us to use our facilities.
That's great. And Dr. Lovelace.
I'm most excited about the fact that we've just opened up a 16,000 square foot youth facility for our children and youth, and pouring into another generation. We have children and youth that take these values and this message of faith beyond myself and helping our community.
All initiatives of hope. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And best wishes to you.
It was a pleasure.
And that's our show. Thanks to the American Leadership Forum and to our guests, and thanks to all of you for watching Studio Sacramento. I'm Scott Syfax. See you next time right here on KVIE.
At Five Star Bank, community is at the heart of what we do. Every day we strive to have thoughtful solutions for our customers and help our communities prosper. Honest dialogue about the issues affecting the region is vitally important to that prosperity. We are proud to be part of the conversation and hope you'll join in.
All episodes of Studio Sacramento, along with other KVIE programs, are available to watch online at kvie.org/video.